Let's start copying in the grabbing the information from Firestore like we did in the admin.vue. But before we do this, I want to import a few things because we need that, of course. So we need to import in the store.js, of course. We need to import just parts of this here. So db menu that we have been using a few times, because this is the one we're going to be using basically, because we are working with the what they call in the item menu items on Firestore, right? So if you're curious where this comes from, it's from in here, where we're doing this, and we're going to the collection called menu item. Here again, from, and then we do the // and Firebase. There we go. So that's the first one. We need to have two more. We can go in and copy them from admin page or home, or we can just write them out here, which I'll do now. So Firebase from, and that's gonna be Firebase. That's the first one. Then we want to do an import. What's the other one called? Firebase / Firestore. So we have everything ready and up and running, so it knows all the functioning keywords and prototypes and methods we're going to use. It can recognize those, so we can actually use them in here. Awesome. That's the first part of this. So let's go back to our admin here. I'm just going to drag it up here so it doesn't switch. What we want to do now is we want to start grabbing this, and we're going to change this code a little bit, but we're going to be reusing parts of this to implement our new lifecycle hook in Vuex instead. Okay, so let's grab the information. I'm just going to take all of it here and just copy this because we're going to use part of it, and then go into our store, and then after the user here, so after the user status here, do a comma separation. Do a few lines of space because we need to change things here. So I'm just going to paste this in, and this might give us an error, but that's all right. But we're going to use this to create our new one, because what we want to do is we want to use the name down here from set menu item. This is going to be our mutation up here. That was the name of it. So set menu item, and it takes in the state. We're using the fat arrow notation to create our function here. And just to make the yellow thing go away, I'm just going to do a dot here, a comma separation here. And in this one, we're going to set up a few new things. So we're going to use the let variable here, or a standard variable, but it's a let, the ECMAScript 6 one. And then we're going to set up our menu equal to an empty array. I know we have it up here, but it's necessary to have it in here because it's inside the scope here. Awesome, that's the first part we want to do. So we also want to grab the database menu add that we have before. I'm just going to do a space here. And instead of using the get function that we used last time, we can use something called on snapshot. So on, if I can spell it right, snapshot, there we go. On snapshot, and then we do a parentheses, and inside of this, we're going to use another parentheses here, and then we're going to type in what the iteration is going to be. So we're going to call this snapshot items with an S. Just after this one is done, just do an enter here so you can see they're separated like this. Then we do use our fat arrow notation again, create our function scope here, and then inside this we're going to continue working with it. So what we want to do is we're going to yet again create a menu item here, because we want to empty the array so it doesn't create duplicate items. If that, you can try actually commenting it out if you want to, and see what happens later once everything is done, so you can actually see what this does. Try commenting that out and actually seeing. So for now, leave this here, and then we're going to go use the word we have up here, our variable here, and we're going to post this in, and then do a for each like we have before, and we're going to use, like we have down here, the doc. So grabbing the information doc like this, and then we're going to use yet another arrow function here. There will be many of these, and I have an error because I forgot to do something. So let's go back a little bit so it's not too confused. So hopefully you have this, and around the document we need there we go. We need some parentheses, and just before the last one again, do a fat arrow notation, do our function here, and then open this up. And in this one, we're going to store our document data in a variable. And the variable name is going to be called menu item, no, it's not new, an S, and data. like this. And we set this to data. So basically what we're doing, doc data, oh, that's the other way around. This is data, not doc, data, and then doc over here. So it's similar to what we're doing down here, but we're adding a little bit more code because we want this to be real time as well. So if there's a change, we make sure everything goes correctly. Now, what I want to do is inside here, I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to, just as we have down here where we do this menu and then push. So we want to push the information that comes from Firebase, which we're grabbing, and store this in the array up here that we call menu items, right? So type menu items dot push and parentheses, and inside the parentheses you're going to do your curly bracket, and in here what we want to do is, instead of typing all this out again, I'm going to use the spread operator here. Now if this doesn't work on your machine, you can just type them out as below, but it should work. It's an ECMAScript 6, and if you're having trouble, you can search for the spread operator, VueJS, and then I think it's called Babel, so you can install that so it works, but it should work. How you use this is just using 3 dots like this. That takes all the information, so if you have name, description, price, label, whatever you have, it's just going to grab all of them and put them in automatically instead. So I want to use this because it's cool. So item data that we already have up there. And then the last one I want to make sure I have is the ID, because that's always great, right? So this is what I want to have on my computer right now. So we set our menu items here, and everything in here is being put into the menu item. So the last thing we want to do just before we're done with this, we want to make sure that outside the for loop, so if you click here, that one, we want to see where this ends. So just before the H here, and you can see it ends here, we want to put in state.menu items equals menu item. So we're just making sure we're storing everything correctly here. So this should work. So let's see what happens when we're actually not done. We're done with the store here. So if I save, we're probably going to see a crash over here, but just leave it there. No, we didn't crash actually, but this should be our mutation setup, and we can just remove the created now. So we're back to having this. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit and put this up here instead. And then I have one too many dots here. There we go. I don't want that one. So my code looks like this now. This should be done in the store now. We need to do some changes in the admin panel, in the admin view, to actually grab the information. It's still grabbing the information from view because we still have the created in here. But what we want to do is we want to change this up so we can actually see this here. So scroll down to where we have the computed part. So we're gonna, not yet, but we will move this up here. So in the computed part, I'm just going to put this on the top of mine. I am going to create one called menu items, because as a computer part we don't need to like call it in as a function. Computer part can just be interpolated or using in a v for loop and so on and so on. So write it correctly. So you have menu, you have your parentheses, you have your parentheses, and you have your curly brackets, and you have your comma separation here. Inside this we're going to use, just as we did before with in the I want to say menu, where we do the return, stores and getters, and then grab information. We're going to do the same here. So we're going to do a return and store the data here. So we're going to do this, and then we do $store, $getters, because we created some of those, and the one what we want is get menu item. And this is of course the one we have down here. So now we want to grab the information that we put in this array up here through our mutation here. That's grabbing information, storing everything. So that's the first part of this one. Right, of course, is if you scroll up again where we have our created. I'm just going to minimize this real quick so we can better see here. Just before this, I want to create a new one. I want to call it before create, create like this. Oh, it's actually a capital C. Before create, and in here we're going to make our new the new way of grabbing the information, right? So let's do this type store, and what we want to do now is we want to initialize from our store here, we want to initialize our action here. So we want to grab the information, and also when if there's any changes in the information, it makes sure it checks, so it updates and re-renders the system. So we do a dispatch to grab the action, and what we want to do, we want to name or assign the name of the action we have in here, and the action we have in here is set menu item. So copy this, and I can now see that these are the same name. So if you want to change it, you can say, do it like a capital, an extra M here for mutation if you want to, and then change it up here. But I'm okay with this. So we do this in here, set menu items, and let's do just remove all of this created now, like this. Boom, so that's gone. And then we do a comma separation here, of course. And let's do a save, and let's see if this works. So no errors, I think. We may have an error defined, but no use, that's all right. So let's go back here, let's go to menu, that still works, we haven't changed anything. Let's go to the admin here, we have an error. So let's figure out what the error is. Maybe I missed something. So we're already using blah, blah, blah. So let's see, we have property menu is already defined in data. So let's see our store. We have our menu item here. It goes through set items. I don't see any errors here. Let's go into our admin part. It grabs information from the store. Doesn't seem to be errors here. Where did it go? So what did it actually say? It says duplicate defines. Oh, okay. So here, this part here is already being grabbed from the store, because that's what we're doing. We're storing the menu items in here, and then we're actually using the getters in here. But the system is trying to use both now. So if we go back to the admin part, delete the menu item, and let's just delete this one too, because we don't need that at the moment. And save, and that should update, and so now it's back over here. And hopefully if we go back, just do a test. I'm going to home and then admin, and now the error is gone, and you can still see it over here. So what I'm going to do real fast, since this is now connected to our I'm just going to do a real quick test. So test item add, and then we go to the admin part, and before, if I click delete, you would have to refresh the page. So hopefully once I click delete here, it will automatically re-render the page as well, as you can see. So we don't have to click and then re-render and check, did we delete the correct ones. So now it's also doing a hot reload or re-rendering when the data is changed, because we're using Vuex to control all the data flow, and it's kind of doing a watch on the data as well. So this is a way we can start moving in our data into the Vuex part of the VueJS project, instead of having it separately. So instead of doing, I'm grabbing Firestore in this document, in this component, and this component, actually they're doing the same thing. So we're just moving all the logic into the store. Now what you could do is, of course, I'm not going to do this in the video, but you should do the same in menu. So grabbing information from menu, and then using the dispatch and using the getters to actually get the information there as well, and then locating and finding all the errors. All right, so that's moving the information here, and what we're going to look into in the next video is how we can start doing an edit to our project items. There we go.